Excited to have all three departments of our wonderful Blue Anchor building in the house for this webinar Wednesday. So we're going to just let the room populate, and I will hand it over to our esteemed director, Kate Gordon, very shortly. So get situated, find your Q&A button so that you can ask your questions, get whatever you need for the next hour and a half to be comfortable. We're happy to have you here. Thank you. Give it a few more moments. Again, if you're not sure where you are, this is Webinar Wednesdays. We do this. We've been doing it every Wednesday. Can't promise it'll always be every Wednesday, but had a great run for the past few weeks. Again, it's Webinar Wednesday. My name is William Walker. I'm an associate planner with OPR, and I would like to, without further ado, hand it over to our director of OPR, Kate Gordon, for today's webinar, Pathways to State Service, Volunteer Positions, Internships, and Fellowships. Good afternoon, Kate Gordon.
Thanks so much, William. It is so nice to be here, and thanks for those who have joined. It is really nice, actually, especially in this time when we're all working remotely, to have our Blue Anchor building, the building where all of us are normally physically located, all come together, and it particularly OPR-SGC and CalVolunteers on one call. So thank you to everybody who's here. The topic of this webinar is so important to us. I mean, state service is just what defines, I think, all of our lives and why we're in the jobs we're in. And particularly at all three of our organizations, and really for CalVolunteers, it's their mission. We are so focused on helping develop these pathways into becoming part of the state government and serving the public. Our internships and fellowships at OPR and SGC are a core part of our staff, our work. We throw folks into the deep end the day they get there. People are writing policy papers, people are running meetings. We really want to give a full and rich experience of interagency work and work with stakeholders in collaboration and policy development to all of our interns and fellows. And we've seen them go on to just amazing careers in state service that we stay connected with them for years. So we really see ourselves, someone said the other day on an email chain, we're the farm team of the rest of the state government in some ways, and we really value that and find it just one of the most valuable things we do, frankly. So thrilled to have all of these folks on the call, particularly thrilled that Josh Friday is here, our Chief Service Officer for the state of California. Josh is somebody that I've been lucky enough to work with for a number of years. Actually, we've known each other since we both worked with Next Gen Climate. And Josh is a military veteran, former mayor of Novato, so has city experience, being in the trenches in both military sense as a JAG Corps member and as a mayor. And he has been somebody who really brings a deep commitment to service to the state government and has elevated the profile of that office and really just thrown himself in, particularly during this incredibly challenging time we're in now, where state service has been just a core part of our COVID response. So thrilled to have Josh on the call to be able to introduce him. And am I turning it straight to Josh, William? And I should say William Walker, the brains behind this whole thing and the reason it's actually happening. Am I turning it back to you, William?
Yeah, you're gonna turn it back to me, and I'm gonna have a nice little conversation with Josh about California volunteers. Welcome, and thank you, Kate, for joining us. Josh, welcome to you. And what I want to first ask you, you have one of the coolest titles in the world, I think. What is a Chief Service Officer, and what do you get to do with our California volunteers?
Well, not only is it the coolest title, but I get to do the coolest work in the entire world, William. So I appreciate that. Before I answer that, just thank you, William, for pulling this together and all your hard work and your team. Really appreciate it. And Kate, Always fun to follow you. Kate's actually was responsible for introducing me to Next Gen Climate when I was in the military, and then I followed her into state government. So that's my MO and that's my track record, and I'm proud to be here behind you, Kate. So thank you, and thank you for that intro.
I was never mayor of Novato though, so you got that over me.
We're gonna get you all to Nevada soon enough, so I know it's coming. So William, to answer your question, the Chief Service Officer is this incredible position, and one that the governor has made a cabinet level position because of his passion for service and his passion for volunteerism. And our office, California Volunteers, is responsible for engaging Californians and really everyone in their community to come together and give back in a meaningful way to solve some of our biggest problems. And as Kate mentioned, COVID has obviously taken most of our focus, as it has the rest of state government for the last several months. But whether it comes to poverty or education or the environment and climate, we're tasked with thinking about how do we mobilize people and unite people and give them an opportunity to give back. So it's a lot of fun.
Great. Speaking of the COVID-19 response, I'm curious, I know that it's statewide, it's happening, it's worldwide. Where are volunteers right now, and what types of projects are folks working on?
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating about this crisis that we're in, unlike other crises, except for maybe climate change, is that it's literally affects everyone. And so we have volunteers in every corner of the state who are doing things on a daily basis to support their communities. And whether that's at the food banks that we've been supporting up and down the state in places like Stockton, where we have several AmeriCorps members and volunteers, to the over 30 food banks that we've been supporting since the crisis started across the state, to we have programs like Zoomers to Boomers, which is an incredible youth program that was started after COVID began, to have young people help deliver meals to seniors in need. And then we also are seeing neighbors step up through our neighbor to neighbor program. In literally every community, people are checking on their neighbors to make sure that they have food to eat, they have medical supplies, and we're seeing a ubiquitous response from people all over California, which has been really inspiring.
Great. I know that there is one particular program that you're working on right now that I think the deadline is August 31st. It's California's Summer Service. So I wanted you to touch a bit on that. I have a link up on the screen for folks to check out. We'll also share it at the very end, but tell us about Summer Service.
Yeah, we appreciate the deadline, because we want more people to sign up, and you still have time to serve. But Summer Service is this really fun program that we launched this summer for the very first time, really to, I think, try to accomplish a couple key things. One is we have a whole generation now that may have lost internships or other opportunities because of COVID. And so we wanted to give people an opportunity to give back and be involved in their communities. But most importantly, we also have major needs, and we need young people. We need people to be involved and to be giving back now more than ever. And so we launched the Summer Service with the first partner, Jen Siebel-Newsome, as a way of calling on young people, whether they're in college or recently graduated college or in high school or younger, to say, if you commit to a certain number of hours of service, and we have 3 different levels, and you sign up to serve at californiansforall.ca.gov, then we are going to recognize your service. And at the end of the summer, if you've done your service and you've given back in a meaningful way, then we're going to recognize you with through the First Partners Office and also through California Volunteers. And we're also going to give you the opportunities. We're going to connect you to places in your communities that you can serve.
What I found really cool about it is that you can set your own parameters. So like you said, the pandemic is touching all of us. If you know that all you really have is 3 hours and you're able to meet that 3-hour benchmark, you can still be commended for the service that you've done with the state. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's right. And that's really our message, William, is that like everybody has something to contribute, and everyone can contribute in a meaningful way. And we need each other. This is a time where our job is to bring people together to solve problems. And we have a time right now where in order to beat this, we have to be apart. And so what we say is we have to beat COVID apart, but we're going to get through this by coming together. And maybe it's not physically just, but we're going to be connected and remain connected. So everyone has something to contribute. Everyone can stay connected and give back. And whether you're doing that 1 hour a week or you want to do it 20 hours a week, we're going to give you the opportunity to do it.
That is awesome. I will share the link one more time. I know that the link that you're giving is a little different. It's CaliforniansForAll.ca.gov. It's shorter than the one we have on screen, but from what I understand, they're going to about the same place.
I think that's the magic of the internet, William. I think they go to the same place.
Great. And may I allow you any last remarks? I know that in the spirit of cross promotion, you have your own social media event in about 20 minutes. So I want to give you time to get to that, but any last remarks for ours?
Yeah, what I just say is, listen, we have big needs in our state right now. We have big needs in every community, especially in low-income communities. And in order to solve these needs, in order to meet the moment, as the governor has called on all of us to do, we need everyone to contribute. And if you go to CaliforniansForAll.ca.gov, you can find a way to contribute and give back in your community. We want you to sign up with us. And if you have the ability to, and you want to participate in the summer of service, it's a great opportunity to give back and make a difference in your community. It's also a great opportunity to help yourself. There's a ton of research and studies that show the impact of volunteering on reducing anxiety, reducing depression. So it's especially during now when many of us feel isolated, it's a great way to feel connected to people and to make connections in ways that you make new friends, can help in your career, build skills. So lots of reasons to sign up with us, lots of reasons to do the summer service. But most importantly, I would just say that we need you. California needs you. We need everyone to step up in a big way, and we're hoping that we get a chance to work with you. So encourage people to go to CaliforniansForAll.ca.gov, sign up for the summer service, sign up with us, and we're going to get through this together.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. Look forward to seeing you in the Blue Anchor when times are when we can pass in the hall again. And,
we will all be together again soon. But thank you for doing this. Really fun. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great one. Thanks so much, Josh. So I want to quickly give folks who are new to us. I know that typically this is a webinar full of planners and wonks, and you're all very familiar with the mission of OPR and SGC. The Governor's Office of Planning and Research is the long-range planning and research arm of the state of California. We think about a lot of the hard questions about how we plan, where we build, what type of transportation can we provide to prevent climate from changing in a way that's harmful to us. And the California Strategic Council, the vision is healthy, thriving, and resilient communities for all. We're partner agencies, and as you can see, a lot of what we do aligns, and that's why the fellows that I'm going to introduce you to next work very closely together. And I'm very honored because I was a fellow once at the ACLU back in my heyday. And it's always fun to explain to people the difference between interns and fellows. So I hope that we get to that today. I will introduce James Crowder, who is our executive fellow for the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, which you will hear us refer to as OPR, and Sarah Samden, who is our executive fellow for the California Strategic Growth Council. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I want to do a quick poll. I'm putting Alyssa on the spot. And I'm going to let Alyssa pick a poll because this would be a good time to get to know who's in the audience.
Yeah, of course. Let me go ahead and shoot out the first poll.
All right.
So our first question is, who is currently a student?
Good question.
And the two choices are who's currently a student, a graduate, or previous student. We'll go ahead and give folks a couple seconds to go ahead and just answer that, and then I'll be ending it shortly. Okay.
Student-driven topic. We'll let Josh know who's eligible to to do the summer service. We've got a lot of folks who've finished school. That's what I see here. But we've got 3 students in the house. So thank you for joining us. What I'm going to do right now is hand it over to James Crowder. He's our executive fellow for OPR, and he will hand it over to Sarah. They're both going to tell you about our executive fellowship program. Hi, James.
Yeah, appreciate it, William. So like William said, my name is James Crowder. I'm the executive fellow here at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. And first, I'm going to give you all a little bit of an idea of what the executive fellowship program is. And then once I get through that, I'll go into a little more detail about myself and what I've been up to during my fellowship year. And then we'll hear from my good friend, Sarah Samden, who's the executive fellow at Strategic Growth Council, and she'll let us know more about herself and her fellowship year. Also want to thank Mr. Friday for being here again. One of the great things about the fellowship is networking. About 2 weeks into the fellowship, I got to meet Mr. Friday and talk to him. We both happen to be veterans and lawyers, so we had quite a bit in common. But meeting people at that level is, a huge part of the fellowship. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But thank you, Mr. Friday, for being here. So the executive fellowship is a 10-month fellowship that's run by Sacramento State, or for y'all that might be out of state, California State University at Sacramento, and the governor's office. And it's about 10 months. Kind of depends on how you look at it, but 10 to 11 months. And the application period starts in October and it closes in early February. So what a lot of folks do is they apply in their senior year and then start after they've graduated, because one of the requirements is that you do need a bachelor's degree before you start the program. So to give you an idea, there's generally quite a few applicants, between 300 and 400 generally, and only 18 of those folks are chosen for any given cohort. And so, good and bad. The bad is that it's pretty hard to get into. The good is that we end up with an extremely diverse set of individuals and experiences that all come together, which just really provides an outstanding learning experience and work experience within the cohort. So as you can see, fellows do get a monthly stipend. We also get health and dental insurance, and we have access to anything on Sac State's campus, including mental health services, the gym, things like that. Of course, all these things, subject to change, especially during times of COVID. But currently, those are all the benefits there. If you go to the next slide, please. So, what's the purpose of this? At the beginning of the fellowship, once you're selected and you've accepted, starts in October, and the first few weeks we get an orientation. And orientation is kind of covers as much of California government as possible. Now, I don't know for y'all that are on the call if y'all can tell, but I ain't from around here, so for folks like me, it's super helpful to understand what goes on in California government and how it works. In Texas, where I'm from, the legislature only meets every 2 years, right? That's not how it's done here. So you get kind of a good overview on how things work, and then you also get to meet a bunch of folks from agencies. So now I'm assuming they're going to do it remote. I don't know about the 21 or the 21, 22 folks, but basically you sit in a room and people from all these different agencies just kind of tell you about what they do and how, what projects you might work on and things like that. So it's a really good time to learn about California government, learn about different agencies and what they do. And so after all this orientation, it's usually about a couple weeks, you have to go through a round of kind of internal interviews. So you're already in the fellowship, you will be placed somewhere, but you interview with all these agencies. So you pick, for our cohort, you had to do at least 11 interviews. So you interview with all these folks over the course of about 7 days or so. And then you rank them. You rank them and they rank you. And then our program manager figures out who's going to go where. And from there, you start work, and work, you know, like Kate said earlier, folks kind of just get tossed into the deep end, and then you kind of go from there, and it's really great experience, because you're just kind of part of whatever agency that you end up at. So during all of this, you're also taking a graduate level seminar in public policy from a professor at Sac State. And so you do that pretty much from the beginning of the fellowship in October, and then it ends in December, just like the regular semester would end, and then it picks back up in January and ends in either late May or early June, depending on how the semester is laid out. But at the end, as long as you were successful in doing all your assignments and things like that, you're given a certificate of applied policy and government at the end of the fellowship. So that is essentially the gist of the executive fellowship program. I do want to say one more thing. The executive fellowship program, for those of you that aren't necessarily interested in the executive branch, the program falls under Capital Fellows, and Capital Fellows also has a Senate Fellowship, a Judicial Fellowship, and an Assembly Fellowship. So if you're interested in any of those things, you can also go to this website that we have on the slide and check out those programs as well. And most of the dates and the benefits and things are very similar in those programs as well. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to give you all a little bit of an idea of who I am and kind of some of the work that I've done at OPR in the last 9-10 months that I've been there. So like I said, Governor's Office of Planning and Research, also known as OPR. I do have a JD from the University of Houston, and I have a BA in economics from the University of Texas down in Austin. So hook 'em horns for anybody who might see that. My mentor is Nuantar Key. She is the Deputy Director of Climate Resilience at OPR, and an absolute gem of a supervisor and mentor. So I, along with most fellows, kind of get tasked with doing a lot of things at the beginning, and a lot of it's kind of background work, but you kind of get thrown into the deep end, like I said earlier. So one of the things that's really awesome about OPR and SGC is just the kind of diversity of things that come into the building and things that we work on there. So that's been a super awesome part of my experience, is being able to work in kind of different realms of things. So I've worked on helping with general plan and other long-term planning guidance at the state level, grant administration, recovery efforts, post-fire recovery efforts, how to implement executive orders that have come down from the governor's office and things like that. It's just kind of a huge breadth of different things that OPR does. And as a fellow, you get to be involved with a lot of that. And another big thing, when you have that much stuff going on, you generally have to work outside of the Blue Anchor building, which is the building that OPR is housed in. So almost all of my projects that I've been on have involved some other agency. And I've been able to work with Department of Conservation, Cal OES, which is Office of Emergency Services, Caltrans, which is California's Department of Transportation, General Services, and just many, many more. And, I think that really gets to this last bullet here of one of the big things that's just a huge advantage to this program is the network that you build. And, now I know people from all over the state and all over the state government. And one of the things that you learn pretty quick is if you want to know something, you want to meet somebody, you want to have a coffee, even virtually. We used to do it down at Chicory, but now it's virtual. And somebody in the office knows somebody, and that really goes a long way, and really just helps out, building the next steps in your career or figuring out where you want to go and things like that. So it has been an extremely useful and just super awesome experience over the last 10 months. So that's the gist of my experience over at OPR. So now I'm going to turn it over to my very, very good friend, Sarah Samden, and she'll tell us a little bit more about her experience over at the Strategic Growth Council.
Great. Thank you, James, for that introduction. And thanks, William, for hosting us. This is a really great opportunity. So my name is Sarah Sandin. I'm an executive fellow at the California Strategic Growth Council. And similar to James, I have a background in environmental policy analysis and planning from UC Davis. And as at SGC, my mentor, I have a mentorship team actually, and Louise Bedsworth is the executive director of SGC, and she's one of my mentors. And then my other mentor is Sandra Lupian, who's the Chief External Affairs Officer. And these two individuals have been such a tremendous support system for me being a fellow and transitioning to learning everything about state government. And SGC is kind of a unique office because we are a coordinating body that works cross-programmatically with a bunch of other agencies. And I've really had the opportunity to touch upon so much equity work. And some of the things that I got to work on as a fellow, and I'm still currently working on, is one, supporting SGC's council in preparation for they're about every other 2 months, our council meetings. So I get to attend a lot of briefings with council members. And our council is they're agency secretaries that are appointed for 2-year terms. And I've had an opportunity to attend those briefings and learn more about their perspective of our grant programs and policy initiatives. Other things that I've worked on is planning an SGC retreat, a staff retreat. And that was something that was really fun just because in the beginning of my fellowship, it's really hard to kind of get to know everyone at our agency. And thankfully, SGC is a relatively small agency in comparison to some other agencies in California. So I had an opportunity to collaborate with all of our staff and kind of provide a space for us to think about how we're going to approach the year. Obviously, a lot has changed since the beginning of this year to now, but it was a great opportunity to plan that event. Another project that I had an opportunity to work on is writing and editing SGC's annual report with Sandra Lupian taking the lead on that. And that was really great as well, just because I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of our stakeholders and our grant program and trying to just really capture the storytelling aspects of our grants and how transformative our funding has been in these communities throughout the state. And currently I'm working on a website audit, trying to revamp SGC's website with our student assistant. And that's been something really interesting as well, just because it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So I feel like it's a good opportunity to further develop more technical skills. Overall, being at SGC has been really great. We have a history of having really amazing executive fellows. So there's definitely a huge support system there. And the culture there is just really amazing as well. Just everyone there is so mission oriented and driven. And I really feel like I've been fully immersed into our office, even as a fellow. Yeah, so that's pretty much been my experience at SGC. I feel like James did a lot of touching upon some of the benefits about being a fellow and the networking opportunities that we are given.
It looks like it's my turn to ask the questions. Are y'all feeling like you're in the hot seat? I guess I want to start by just asking, well, it looks like Sarah got a better deal by getting 2 mentors now. But the whole mentorship, it seems a bit like these folks feel like rock stars, like the very top of this webinar with Kate and Josh. How does it feel to come into a role and be assigned a mentor, and how do you get to know these folks, and how has it been different from any other work or school experiences that you've had?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think one of the biggest things, which will probably be a hurdle that the future cohorts have to deal with, but being in person is a huge deal. When I first started, and Tara would walk me around OPR, and we would meet every single person in the building, and she'd tell me about what they did, and we'd go to lunch or we'd go have coffee and all these things. And we also just have general check-ins, and I think those check-ins, about half the time it's work, half the time it's professional development, personal stuff. And I think just through that constant communication, it allows you to build those relationships in a way that maybe, if they were just your normal supervisor, you wouldn't just be doing this, but it's kind of a programmatic standard that occurs every year that, your mentor does certain things, and mentors sign up to be mentors. It's not that the program just goes out and starts handing people off. So, I think it's a big deal. People volunteer to be mentors, and then, they take that seriously. So I think they always want us to have the best, opportunities possible.
Great. Thank you, James. Sarah, same question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I feel like James touched upon a lot of what I would say, but I think in the beginning of the fellowship, when we're doing our interviews with the agencies that we'd potentially like to be placed in, one thing that our program director constantly reminds us of is to think about the type of mentorship you want to receive from this program. And that really shaped my influence and who I wanted to work with, not just like the agency, but also the people I'd be working with. And I personally really wanted something more hands-on and wanted a lot of professional development advice, but also just an opportunity to further develop like technical skills such as writing and research. And that was something that I found at SGC. So I think that's something that I would highly recommend to students that are like me, that were just finishing college and trying to figure out their next steps. I think fellowships are a great opportunity to further develop some skills before continuing on in a professional career. And mentorship is definitely one thing that I would highly recommend people thinking about when they're applying to fellowships.
I'll ask, why public service? There are so many opportunities in the private sector, but I mean, people choose public service for a reason. I'm curious what drew the two of you to it.
So I kind of noted earlier, I was in the Marine Corps for 4.5 years. Worked for the state down in Texas for a while. When I went to law school, I either wanted to work in the government or a nonprofit. It's always kind of my goal. And I think just kind of from day one, that's been a focus of mine. Without the GI Bill and things like that, I wouldn't have ever gone to college, much less law school. So, public service is a big deal for me. Just try to give back to, all the institutions that gave me so much. So that's a big part of it for me.
For me, I personally, throughout college, I was really interested in equity issues, specifically when I was learning about environmental justice. I learned about how there's a lot of areas in California, specifically in the Central Valley, that doesn't have access to clean water. And that was something that really motivated me and pushed me to want to go into public service, just trying to figure out how to make communities more equitable throughout the state. And I've been given the opportunity to think about those issues further with my time at SGC.
I'm going to stay with you, Sarah, and ask, often when you do internships and fellowships, one asks you to be reflective. And I'm curious, if you were to look back over the past year, and I think this is going to be very different for the two of you compared to most folks who take on an internship, what are you doing right now that you didn't envision that you'd be doing 12 months out, especially considering we're all working staring at a screen right now? And what are some things that you wanted to accomplish, and what are some things that maybe you were able to accomplish considering all that's going on in the world right now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to mind first is, as someone who's pretty introverted, I would never imagine that I would be leading and facilitating meetings with state government officials and people that are really high up in making important decisions for Californians. So that's something that I feel like is something that I would have never imagined, just really taking the lead on projects and having that trust among the people that I work with to facilitate these really important policy issues is something that I think about.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that. I think one of the biggest things that's probably a little bit special about this fellowship is, it's longer than most internships. So you do get to kind of be around for a while. And I think that allows folks to be more comfortable and kind of test the waters with you, and then kind of ramp up your responsibility as things go. So, one of the things I coordinate, recovery efforts in the Campfire region. And I never thought that I would be involved with that and kind of being in the know of all the things that are going on out there, and I think that kind of speaks volumes to what we do at OPR, but also the trust that, you can build with your mentor and the kind of task that they'll allow you to do. And I think that's a really big deal.
How about I give you guys a couple minutes to close up before I hand the reins to you to interview your colleagues in the internship program.
Thanks. So yeah, I think overall, I mean, one, I want to say to anybody who watches this or watches this in the future, if you have any specific questions for me, please find me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. And you just send me a message, and I'm always more than happy to help folks out or answer any questions that y'all might have. But for anybody that ever thinks they want to do a fellowship, this is a great fellowship. And though it's kind of geared toward folks with a bachelor's degree, I will say that, I moved from Texas, so that was kind of a big deal. But, you don't learn if you've passed the bar until like months later. And so this is a good opportunity to get into state government, learn if you pass the bar exam, gain a bunch of knowledge, open up that network. I mean, I feel like it's almost more productive for people out of state trying to move into California. I think it's been super helpful for me to get here and be where I am now. So, I really appreciate, the fellowship itself and all the folks that I've met along the way at OPR and SGC.
That's awesome. Thank you. And
Sarah? James, I would say I'm more than happy to help anyone who's possibly interested in learning more about the Executive Fellowship or connecting folks to anyone that's interested in the other Capital Fellowship suite. I also agree that this is a great opportunity for any recent grads that are looking for an opportunity to get into state government and who are not sure exactly what they want to do for their next steps. I think as a former recent grad, I was very stressed out about what I would do and thinking about if I should jump right into a graduate program. And this fellowship opportunity has been a great learning experience and has really guided my next steps in the future.
Great. So, yes.
Can I say just one last thing? You also get to meet amazing other fellows. Me and Sarah used to ride the train every single day together, and it just made like that connection so much better. And there's 17 of us this year, and they're all amazing people. And so I really want to just give a shout out to all the people in the Capital Fellows cohort this year and previous ones. All the fellows I've met who once were fellows have all been amazing to me and always there to help. So I think that's also a big pull, especially in the Sacramento area.
Great. We'll definitely have time towards the end to also have folks in the audience ask questions. It's a smaller group, so everyone might get their question answered for once in one of our webinars. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over, and I'm really excited about this segment. I got to work really closely with Elliot on the planning and community development team, and I even got to work with Kiara on some Regions Rise stuff. So I said that y'all are introducing your colleagues, but you are all part of the OPR-SGC family, and I'm really happy to work with you all. So James and Sarah, take it away.
Great, thanks, William. I'm going to start this discussion about our internship program. So OPR and SGC has an internship program that is available year-long. And right now we have a summer cohort that is composed of various interns and fellows from the following programs that you see on your screen. And for folks that are calling in, we have two PhD fellows from the California Council on Science and Technology. We have a UCCS intern. And then we had a Maddie Institute intern that caters to students in the Central Valley. And then we have a Stanford in Government fellow. And then we have another Stanford Energy in California in the West intern, who's a graduate level intern who is getting her MBA. And then we also have another master's student from the Yale School of the Environment. And then last but not least, we have a Sonoma State University intern, who's the first of its kind. And so as an executive fellow, James and I are responsible for coordinating efforts to pull together an internship cohort throughout the year. And this process is kind of different for every single program that we work with. We've built a long-standing relationship with various partner programs at these mentioned universities and colleges. And that has really fed us into a pool of really qualified applicants. And from there, we do interviews, and then we select our interns. And today, we are going to hear from two interns, Elliot Pickett from OPR and Kiara from SGC, to just learn more about their experience as an intern during a remote work environment, which is obviously very different than they probably imagined they'd be doing. and just learn more about their experience and any insight they have to share with us. Next slide, please. And then I'll hand it over to Elliot to kickstart us.
Hi, I'm Elliot. I am an intern, a summer intern at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, OPR. And just quick before you start, a thank you to Sarah, James, Will, Kiara, everybody for making this webinar happen. This is super cool, and I'm glad for the experience of being in the webinar and also creating the webinar. So thank you. So I'm Elliot again. I'm a rising senior at Sonoma State University. My major is geography, environment, and planning with a concentration in planning for sustainable communities. I'm from Northern California, Chico, California, and I'm now Sonoma County based at Sonoma State. I'm very interested in kind of the holistic systems approach to planning, how planning topics overlap, intersect, affect each other, and interested in finding and communicating co-benefits. Some of these topics I'm interested in include climate resilience, transportation to open space, spatial data using GIS. I've been working specifically in wildfire planning with Eric DeCock. I will be talking more about that later. And now passing it on to Kiara to introduce herself.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Also, I wanted to say thank you to William, Sarah, James, and all the other people that really worked really hard this last week and a half or so to like put this whole thing together. So thank you guys for that. Yeah, so I'm an SGC summer intern. I am from San Diego. Also, I will say, I swear this is not my only shirt. I realize I'm wearing the same shirt in the picture. I just really like this shirt. But yeah, I'm an undergrad rising senior at Stanford University. I'm officially studying architectural design, but I do have a lot of interest in urban planning and communication in general. And I think a lot of that really comes from the fact that I have a very strong personal focus on community advocacy and organizing, a lot because of the kind of work that I have done at Stanford with working with our first generation low income community, but a lot also because of my personal background and where I come from and how I see the world and how I see different systems not quite working for various segments of our population. And so I just have a really strong belief in our ability and duty to move forward and leave no one behind. And so that when I talk about the stuff that I do for SGC, I think you'll see that kind of thing pull through to the front of like how I approached and thought about these issues. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank both of y'all for being here. We really appreciate y'all taking the time to share y'all's experience with everybody. One thing where I think is a great place to start is if each of y'all could just give us the insight on how you got to OPR-SGC. I think some interns have programs like we had on the previous slide of like, that program at that school reaches out to students and then sends certain folks to be interviewed with us, and we interview them. Sometimes you, through your network, you might know somebody. So if y'all could just give us a little bit more detail on how y'all's route to get to this internship played out, that'd be super awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, James. So my story going back to January of this year, that spring semester, I worked an internship with the Center for Sustainable Communities, which is a program on Sonoma State's campus led by Tom Jacobson, my former advisor and professor. I was working on land use tools for wildfire mitigation, sort of a research compilation project. Through this project, Tom Jacobson, my advisor and supervisor, had contacts with Eric DeCock, who's working on the fire hazard technical advisory update. So I had communications back and forth. And at the end of the semester, my advisor suggested that this might be an opportunity that was available to me to kind of continue my work, but getting an introduction to state service. So I was able to reach out, explain my background, explain my work, and speaking with Eric, we found a place for me, a place where I could help put my skills into practice, and I was onboarded as an intern. That was my experience. Didn't go through any official program that Sonoma State just didn't have that program, and I'm really glad that it worked out the way it did, and I was able to work here. Thanks, Kiara.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had pretty much the opposite experience. Stanford has this thing called the Stanford Government Fellowship Program, where we, as students, can apply to various positions, internship positions at both the local, state, and federal level, and I believe even internationally, to work in those various levels of government as an intern. And so it's a well-established program. And if it wasn't for someone at my school being like, I even just a consolidated list of saying like, here's all the things that are available, here's how to apply to that. Like if someone hadn't done that, I never would have known about this. And I think that's a really important thing to know, as like, in terms of like, if these internships are trying to get like the best students, the best kind of talent, the best kind of future for California, and people going to public policy and all that kind of stuff, it really starts at the schools, and it really starts at like where someone makes the decision to make these kinds of opportunities accessible. And that could just be as easy as communicating them. So that's how I got into this. I applied through that program. I did the interviews. I think I remember just being like, I really love California, which is true in my interview with Sarah and James. I don't know if they remember that, but I remember saying it and being like, wow, like I can't believe I just said that. But that was basically my process. So like really big props to university staff, or even anyone who just thinks like, who has a thought and is like, I want to make these opportunities accessible to students, because that's the only way I would have gotten to a place like this.
Great. Thank you both for sharing a little bit about how you got to OPR and SGC. The next question we have for you is if you could briefly discuss what team you work on in your respective placements, and then just a high-level overview of some projects you've had the opportunity to work on.
Sorry, had to unmute myself. So as I mentioned before, I'm mainly working with Eric DeCock. I think I saw him on the call. You're on the call. Hi, Eric. Thank you. Working with wildfire planning, so the Fire Hazard Technical Advisory. I was working on a part of the appendix. Did a lot of looking through existing plans, understanding current local planning framework, summarizing information. Got to do some of that through interviewing local jurisdictions, helping understand what the process looks like in different regions, and ensuring that these connections and coordinations between state and local planning efforts exist. Trying to figure out how can this document not only fulfill requirements, but actually be connected to the local governments and people that will be using the documents to make sure it aligns with their needs. So that was my main task. Got to work on the specific part, but also got to help with some overall reviewing, editing, organizing discussions, which I found fascinating. I had some side project also. I worked with Beth Hotchkiss, sorry Beth, on some annual planning survey data, kind of compilation and analysis, looking through who's responded to past annual planning surveys, so that we can use that data to better do outreach in the future to make sure the annual planning survey accurately is able to represent the whole state, get as many respondents as possible. So yeah, Eric and Beth, they're my main team. It was incredible. Also did a lot of work with William here, Sandra, and Sarah and James, and so many other people were able to reach out to me, set up one-on-ones and make connections. But those were my main team, those were my main tasks, and on to Kiara.
Yeah, so mine is I truly did cross-programmatic work. It's hard to say exactly what team I was on, because so I had three main projects, and the first one had to do with density and density research with Louise Bedsworth. And so where that kind of came from is the fact that climate change mitigation, adaptation, trying to figure out what to do with that growing population, and just the creation of sustainable futures all converge on this idea of higher density living. And that is true pretty much across the entire world. But higher density is villainized both fairly and unfairly for the real and imagined negative effects it has on people's health, on equity, and other legitimate concerns. And so this project was really about finding ways for policymakers to be able to more specifically talk about and understand and communicate and define density as they attempt to regulate it, because it is quite a vague term. And so there are better ways to approach how we talk about density. And that was basically how the project was, is finding those ways so that communities, policymakers, developers, people can actually communicate about what they need and what they want for the future. And my second project was with Aegon Plan for regional economic development. And this really came again from that interest. So it came from my interest in working with Regions Rise Together. And that program resonated with me because of the idea that California can only move forward if we move forward together. And so this project is really about asking, how do we uplift regions? How do we uplift regional stakeholders, local stakeholders, and let them lead the way rather than the state in dealing with problems that we all care about, but the state may not have like the exact knowledge about the intricate networks and opportunities and challenges each region faces. So hopefully this will lead to an organization of state resources and efforts towards giving on the ground leaders more tools, more support, and just the ability to really lead the way. And lastly, I was also working with Beth Hotchkiss along with Elliot on this annual planning survey, because really, like, I think a really incredible thing that I saw at SGC and OPR is their willingness to question whether or not what they were doing was right and finding ways to make it better. And so what I did was really finding ways to make the annual planning survey, making the annual planning survey more communicable and more accessible, and make it make sense in many ways, so that we can make sure that this survey that they've been doing since the 70s is actually helpful to both the state and local planners. And so trying to create mutually beneficial results from everything that they do is something really incredible that I see at SGC. So those are the basic 3 projects that I've been working on.
Oh, thank you all. I think, it goes along with what Sarah and I had said earlier, is that you don't become a fellow or an intern at OPR and SGC and, sit around. There's a lot of work to be done, and they trust that fellows and interns can help with that work. So a lot of meaningful work is done by both fellows and interns. So thank y'all for all y'all's work on all those projects. I want to ask y'all a question that's probably on the minds of a lot of folks right now. Y'all's entire internship has been remote. It may or may not be remote next year for summer interns. We have no idea at this point. But can y'all just give us a little bit of insight on how it's been being strictly remote? Like we said earlier, we started in the physical building, so we have kind of different views on that. But as folks who are 100% remote this whole time, can y'all give us some insight on that?
So first of all, the fact that this internship was remote is what gave me the opportunity to do it. Where I live, it's an hour and a half, 45-minute drive to the office. So I would have either had a very long commute or had to relocate, and just logistically, it would have been very difficult for me to actually hold this internship if it were not remote. So that's kind of in the conversation about positives and negatives that come with remote work and opportunities that COVID is creating for us. So there's a little bit of me that's kind of glad, but so my schoolwork was remote from March through May, March through the end of the semester. So I already had some remote work experience going on before heading into this internship. There's a lot of overlap between those skills and challenges. A lot about how to work, communicate, and self-regulate in a remote environment. One big difference working as an intern than as a student remotely is that as an intern, I have a more consistent schedule. So at 5 p.m. every day, I can say, okay, I'm done for the day, stop what I'm doing, and really achieve that work-life balance that as a student, it's hard to maintain when you're just doing assignments and projects at random times. Collaboration can definitely be difficult, meeting over video, especially with the internship. I never have met these people in person. I had the internship during spring semester that went online, so I did have a little bit of experience using Zoom, using collaboration through documents without being in person. but I definitely had to build on those skills and kind of have a steep learning curve when it came to Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and all of that. But definitely checking in, receiving feedback, while also being able to manage my own work plan and working from a distance. It's a little bit of a challenge. It's a very nice commute. And I'm glad that I was able to learn these skills in an intern environment, because who knows what the future work environments will look like. And now I can say, hey, I know how to work in a remote environment, which I find super valuable. So there's my experience. Kiara?
Yeah, some pretty similar experiences to Elliot, because I too, everyone's school kind of went online. And so going from staring at a screen for 9 hours a day to staring at a screen for 9 hours a day is quite a bit. And so definitely having to check in with myself and find ways to get offline, get off my laptop and do as much work as possible away from the screen was a big adjustment, I think, with trying to do this kind of work, because it's amazing work, but you don't want to get tired of it just because of like the physical burden of like having, not burden, but like that's just like the physical strain of like sitting here and like my eyes aren't that good and stuff like that. And so that was definitely a big part of like this, is trying to fight those kinds of strains that come with this particular kind of work. I think one thing that I found, the thing with the remote work is, like Elliot said, there are a lot of people in the office that we never really met. Today, I just met one of the other fellows, Christina, who's really cool. And it's just one thing that is definitely lost with these remote environments is those sudden interactions, those like stop by the desk, say something, oh my gosh, that's an idea, like, wow, like, oh, like you have a connection here, that this and that. But I think SGC and OPR have done a really great job, actually, of trying to get as much of that as possible. Like I've heard of other agencies, maybe not other agencies, but certainly like other workplaces that don't have their cameras on. Like that seems like such a simple thing, but just being to see the faces, able to see the faces that come with the emails, that come with the messages, has been a really big thing. And having people that reached out to us too, directly, Beth Hotchkiss, the person that both me and Elliot work with, probably would never would have worked with her if she hadn't reached out first and been like, hey, like, oh, I just wanted to check in and say like, what's up? And so forming those connections, and I think that's really important, like knowing who's on your team, because interns, yes, we're here for only 9 weeks, but if Beth hadn't known that we existed, like who knows if we would have been able to help with these kinds of projects. And so just finding those little ways so that you know who's on your team, you know how to interact, and you can get the most out of these like small interactions with each other, I think was like some of the best parts of this internship.
Great, thank you both. And our last question for the two of you is, as you're both nearing the end of your time with OPR and SGC, we just wanted to get a quick insight about what was the most important thing you feel like you've gained from this opportunity, and something that you learned about state government that you didn't know before you came here.
Yeah, so this was touched on by the fellows, but lots of networking opportunities, lots of professional development conversations. I'd put those at the top of my best, most important things. But I think the biggest takeaway I have from this internship is just learning how many career paths and options there are, hearing other people's journeys into the field of planning, and then once you're in the field of planning, how many places you can go. Before entering this internship, I had a more siloed view of my future plans, and at OPR, I've just learned about so many different departments, so many different organizations, so many different options, outreach and engagement and planning and policy work. There's so much planning work out there to do, and it's kind of opened my eyes to different kinds of work I can take in the future, which I appreciate and I'm very excited about. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. On to Kiara.
I think quite honestly, just the fact that state work and government work in general is a possibility for me. Because basically my whole family is like in healthcare. I come from a background where I just knew one thing and one possibility. And I never even looked at this possibility as a thing to apply myself and apply my insights and apply myself to our collective future. And if it wasn't for this internship, like I never would have known like the different ways that I could get involved, the different pathways I could take. Again, there are people in SGC and OPR. Not everyone came straight from a bachelor's degree. And that was a really important thing to know too, as a rising senior and trying to figure out like what's next. It is very comforting to know the different pathways we can take to the same place. And so those are some of the really critical professional and life things that I have learned from all the really wise people at SGC and OPR.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being with us and sharing those insights. We're going to turn it back over to William so they can talk about Civic Spark for a little bit, and then we'll come back around and take questions from the public participants here in a little bit. So thank you all again.
All right. Thank you all. That was so great. I'm gonna just give a shout out to planning and community development because y'all kept mentioning everyone from my team and that collaboration. But it's really great that we all do cross collaborations. I've worked with everyone on this webinar in some shape or form, and not just on webinars. Like we've actually gotten to work. I mean, the APS, the annual planning survey, and the wildfire TA. I mean, these are exciting things that you can learn about if you join us here in state service. Hi, Nikki. Are you there?
Hi. Can you hear me?
See, I can't see you anymore, but that's deficiencies of my. I had hot news to add to this slide. It's the next slide, but everyone was like, why aren't you sharing slides anymore? There is breaking news, but we're going to get to that in a moment. My fellow colleague, Nikki, also a planner at OPR on the climate team, is going to tell us a bit about Civic Spark. Hi. Hi, Nikki.
Awesome. Thanks, William. Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank all of the fellows and interns for all of their great work with the state thus far. It's been a pleasure working with those of you I've worked with. So my name's Nikki Caravelli, and I am an assistant planner with the climate team over at the Office of Planning and Research. And I am proud to say that I am also a fellow, but or not a fellow, excuse me, I'm an alumni from a fellowship program called
Say graduate.
I graduated, that was a while ago. So I want to give a brief plug for this program as well, because in addition to all these other great programs that you've heard about today, Civic Spark is a fantastic way to enter state or local public service. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about that, talk about what my service year was like just a little bit, and then turn it back to William and the rest of the webinar. But so Civic Spark is a Governor's Initiative AmeriCorps program, and it's dedicated to building capacity specifically for local governments to address emerging environmental and social equity or resilience challenges. So that includes things like climate change, water resource management, affordable housing, and mobility, in addition to COVID-19 resilience and other emerging resilience issues that local governments are actively trying to meet on the ground. Civic Spark is administered by the Local Government Commission in partnership with OPR, and it's also in partnership with CalVolunteers. And they're actually still accepting project partners and fellows. So that's why I'm announcing it here, because I think it's a great opportunity. They still have plenty of capacity to take more agencies or nonprofits if you are looking for an extra hand from a bright, passionate recent graduate. Or on the other hand, if you are one of those folks who are looking for a job, they're still open and accepting applications through the fall. So just a little bit more about what that means. If you're a project partner, you would be receiving a bright, passionate recent graduate from this highly competitive statewide program. And it's a great affordable way to gain a temporary staff member to see a discrete project through for an 11-month term. Fellows usually support a research, planning, or implementation project, such as like kickstarting a climate vulnerability assessment or leading an equitable community engagement strategy or managing on-the-ground projects. And if you can be a public agency, a state agency, a Native American tribe, or even a nonprofit organization to receive a fellow. so long as your discrete project meets a resiliency capacity need and also benefits one or more public local agency beneficiary. So that's on the project partner side. You can find out more about what the requirements are to be a partner by going to the Civic Spark network on the slide. The website is on the slide. But if you're a recent graduate or looking for this next opportunity to build career skills or explore state or public service, similar to the other programs you've heard about today, it's an awesome, Civic Spark provides an awesome network of, like-minded peers dedicated to addressing the world's most pressing challenges. And I can't speak enough about how this program really did give me the tools and experience to kickstart my career. I can say with certainty I probably wouldn't be in this position right now without the network and skills that I gained from my Civic Spark service year. It not only connects you with real action-oriented local community projects, but also it provides you a lot of professional development opportunities and trainings, anywhere from like just office etiquette to like really technical stuff, like how do you do a climate vulnerability assessment and use climate data and that sort of thing. Projects don't have to be climate related, but I'm just using those examples because that's what my project was about. And there's tons of other opportunities through Civic Spark to build your exposure and experience in working with local governments. My service year, I don't want to go over time, so William, feel free to cut me off. If
You got time, honey, you got time.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. I just wanted to talk about what my service year was, just to kind of ground it in my story. So after I graduated college, I had an environmental studies minor and I really wanted to put that into action. And I just stumbled upon this great opportunity in my hometown when I was like frantically applying for jobs. And so I was placed with a nonprofit called Sierra Business Council, which works with local governments in the Sierra Nevada region on developing energy action plans and also coordinating regional climate change efforts across the entire region. So on the one hand, I was placed with this nonprofit and worked through their programs, but my beneficiaries were local governments in the Sierra. So I worked with Alpine County, Sierra County, and the town of Truckee on developing energy efficiency and renewable energy strategies and projects. And I did community outreach. I held an energy action fair and worked with a bunch of kids. And then every fellow is expected to coordinate a volunteer project. So I worked with about 8 volunteers to host an Earth Day science booth. And we did this cool thing where we painted a giant banner with all of the different climate change effects that were going to affect Tahoe. And it was great. Like we had giant trees painted with faces on them and it was really fun. So you can get really creative with these projects. There are a few limitations for what types of work you can do as a Civic Spark Fellow. For instance, you can't help with grant writing or advocacy. But other than that, the sky's pretty open. The sky's the limit. So,
and the biggest benefit of AmeriCorps?
Biggest benefit? Well, there's so many benefits, but you do get a Siegel Education Award. Thank you, William, for reminding me. So I think it's over $6,000, which you can use towards education. So you can put it towards student loans or graduate program or whatever upon the completion of your service year. And I think that doubles if you serve twice in a row, or I don't know. There's ways, like I've known people who have gotten multiple Siegel awards. So if you're interested in that, that's a cool benefit. There's tons of other benefits too. You do get a stipend. Anyway, I've probably talked too much, but if you want to get a fellow, apply today. They're still accepting on a rolling basis. Normally the start date is September 1st, but they are going to be placing fellows on a full-time basis through about early or mid-October. And then after that, they'll shift to more part-time placements through January 2021. So Civic Spark.
There are opportunities in state service. That is definitely what we're here to tell you. Thank you, Nikki. And the hot news, hot flash, wait, the term isn't coming to me. There's a job posted at SGC and it came into my email, and that's why I had to take the screen away for a moment. So we're hiring. It's really rare to be hiring when government's shrinking because of our financial state, but sometimes, you know, people have to retire or, you know, shift around. Programmatic needs change, and we have a temporary analyst position available at SGC. I posted the link there. We can also make these slides available afterward if you'd like. Well, you're welcome to request them. And then I wanted to list all the other opportunities that the links for opportunities in state service. Obviously, whenever we have a job at OPR-SGC, we will post it on our website. Again, that analyst position just got posted not even minutes ago on the CalCareers website, which is the next link on our slide, where you can find permanent employee positions in state service. There are jobs posted there. I know that jobs are hard to find right now because a lot of places are not hiring, but we are hiring at the state of California. California Volunteers is always looking for more volunteers, as Josh stated at the very top of the webinar, our Chief Service Officer for California Volunteers. And the Civic Spark link is our final link on this page for other opportunities. Again, we'll make this available to anyone who would like it. Before we get to Q&A, which our wonderful Alyssa Montanez, executive producer of our webinars, will be helping us with, I'd like to ask Alyssa if you could help us with our second poll.
Had to unmute myself. Yeah, of course. I'm going to go ahead and launch our second poll. And the question is, have you ever been an intern? So I give folks a few seconds to go ahead and answer that.
Curious who's been an intern. Looks like everyone on this webinar has been an intern or a fellow or both. We'll wait for you to find your Q&A button. A couple more seconds. A lot of options there. You can just say yes or no. It was just our way of having a little bit of fun with our audience. Let's see who's still here. All right. Lots of folks have been interns, so I'm glad that we have lots of diverse opportunities on this slide for folks who are looking for more permanent employment. That's a thing. And our fellowship opportunities with LGC and the executive fellowships there, they're generally full-time. So those often come with a lot of the benefits that James talked about at the top of the webinar. So I'd like to see if we have any questions from our audience, Alyssa.
Yeah, as of right now, there are no questions.
Okay.
If you have a question, go ahead and just use your Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and go ahead and ask any questions.
I'll ask our next question. Where is everyone headed? Or are people staying on? What's everyone's plans for upcoming for the fall?
I was fortunate enough to obtain employment over at the Department of Transportation, so I will be a deputy attorney over there starting next month.
Right. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Caltrans
family, state family, Caltrans.
Does look like you have a question. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
Daisy asked, what are the locations of the Civic Spark placements?
So that is statewide. So it can literally be anywhere in the state of California. I'm happy to talk more about that if you had more to ask about it.
Okay. All right.
And move on to the second or to the next question. Looks like they're slowly coming in.
Sure.
Current sophomore at Sonoma State University, what opportunities would you advise in terms of internships?
Anyone want to take that on?
I mean, I guess as the Sonoma State student here, hello, I don't know if I know you, but I am also your fellow student at Sonoma State. I've worked at the two internships. I worked at the Center for Sustainable Communities, and now I'm here. And a lot of that was just from talking to my advisor. So it was Tom Jacobson at that point. I'm not sure if you're in my department or what, but just having that constant communication, just saying, hey, I'm interested in this. My major, again, not sure if it's yours, has an internship requirement. Lots of people wait till their senior year to try to find that. I would definitely recommend starting sooner. Maybe not sophomore year. Maybe you just start looking now. Maybe you find something, but just keep your eye out because there are opportunities that exist. Just asking your advisor, I think, is the biggest thing, and pay attention to the listserv. So those are my Sonoma State specific answers. The rest of you can talk about general things.
One thing that I would say is that I've noticed a lot of my friends that are still finishing up their undergrad do that I wish I did was just reaching out to nonprofits and state agencies and organizations just by looking at their website and finding an email that you can contact. That's really a good place to start if you're looking to get more involved in something that I wish I did, because you never know what opportunities you can get just by reaching out and talking to somebody.
Networking is key. It will get you places. It's guaranteed. And also just putting yourself out there on different applications. There are probably hundreds of jobs on CalCareers, and just putting your name in the hat, it gets you in the rhythm of understanding. Like for a lot of these systems, you've got to get your resume in, and they want you to put all your data in. But once you've done it, you can set alerts and it'll just ping you when a new job is posted. So you won't even have to watch our webinar. You just get a ping that says that program analyst position that just got posted. It would just come right to your email box. So definitely signing up for different websites that have that type of feature. Being on LinkedIn, like James said, you can probably find a lot of us here on LinkedIn. I've been offered jobs from LinkedIn. I can't say that that's common, but I've been, recruited, and I know other folks who've been recruited directly from LinkedIn. So if you keep that updated with your projects and tasks, that is also another avenue. We heard that James is staying with the State family. Where else are folks going? If they're going, or if they're staying?
I'm still currently seeking employment, so I've been applying to a lot of local and state government jobs. So hopefully in the next few weeks to months, I'll have a job and be able to stay with the state.
All right. I'm hoping so too. You've got to stay with the family. Once the family, always the family. So I'm rooting for you, Sarah.
I do have another. Oops, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Daisy just had a question. She would like to know where she can find the executive fellowship and if it's listed on these websites.
I know that the executive fellowship has a particular rolling deadline that I think we may have just missed for this webinar. So I didn't include it. It's something that we could probably provide you by email. Wait, we have the link at the very, let me go back to that slide. We do have a link for that. There's where you could find more information about the fellowships. I know that I'm pretty sure that I'm correct though, that their deadline for this current year has passed.
Yes, but I believe the application for the next cohort that would start in the following year opens up in October. So if you're interested in that application, look out on the website for early October for the application.
Great.
Yeah, and I just put that link in the chat, so you can just click on it from the chat as well.
Great.
And like I said, Daisy, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Elliot and Kiara, you are starting your respective terms soon?
So I start my semester in 6 days. And I'm also currently seeking internship opportunities, either remote opportunities, which are still available, or opportunities in Sonoma County. So I've gotten one application in, still looking for different connections and using my OPR network to help me learn about opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, I'll thankfully be starting in a month, so I get a break. But I think I'll be probably dedicating most of my time to both trying to graduate and also doing as much like advocacy work again at my own school as possible. Will I try and hustle and get a side job? Who knows? I think I'm really trying to take advantage of the fact that like I am comfortable enough to be able to just focus on trying to make things more accessible for students at Stanford and hopefully other students beyond our own university for this coming year.
Well, I'm out of questions, and I think the audience might be out of questions. Do y'all have questions for each other? And if not, I can let everyone have a moment for your last remarks, and we can ride into the sunset, or on the way to the sunset. We've still got some time until we got the sunset. Hi, Sandra Lupian, our External Affairs Officer for SGC, Chief External Affairs Officer.
I've just been lurking here listening to this webinar, but I just wanted to say on behalf of our leadership teams at SGC and OPR, how much we value the work of our interns and our fellows. And I was pleased to hear the folks on this call saying, you know, we really do a lot of work. And the reason you do a lot of work is because we rely on you, and we really value the energy and the intelligence and the insights that you bring to the work that you do for OPR and SGC. And you're just such an important and valuable part of our teams. And we always wish that everyone could just stay with us forever. So thank you all for that.
Thank you.
You know, Elliot's handing work off to me in the form of wildfire work. Kiara's handing work off with the annual planning survey. I know that James is handing work off to a fellow team member of mine on a lot of the climate work with the campfire in Paradise. Y'all are doing work. Like, it's not like, this isn't games. This is hard work that you've all been doing, and it's been amazing to watch you all. I'm probably other than our two summer new interns, one of the newest employees at OPR, and I find that I learn so much from our fellows and our interns. They probably know a lot more than I do. And I definitely am pleased to learn from you all, and hope to keep in contact with you all, and hope to find ways to have our work intersect, whether you're at Caltrans, like James will be, or back in school, like our two interns will be, or wherever Sarah is going to land. And I'm definitely going to be looking for that landing, and I'm going to be there with all of you. It was really great working with all of you, and Nikki, Sandra, and I get to continue to carry the torch for our next class of fellows and interns that are going to be joining us in coming months. So Alyssa gets to carry that torch too, right, Alyssa?
Yes, I do. And before we kind of hop off, I just have one more question from Beth, and she asked a really good question. She asked, if folks want to apply for an internship at OPR/SGC or get more information, who should they email?
Well, I'm happy to take that email for now. We definitely, like we've said in the webinar, there are so many ways to end up in internships and fellowships. A lot of it's networking, and a lot of it is through postings. So we definitely post opportunities on our website when they come about. You're welcome to interact with us. All of our contact information is on the website, but I'm just william.walker@opr.ca.gov. Very happy to continue that conversation, and looking for ways to continue bringing folks in. Civic Spark is definitely taking more opportunities, and a lot of those fellows end up in departments with us or with other departments within the state family. So that's something that's happening right now. And as opportunities are posted for OPR and SGC, we will post them to the web.
As James and I start to transition out, we're trying to think of a plan for the next year cohort of interns. And as of right now, you can also email Sandra Lupian, who provided her email in the chat, for further information about our fall internship program.
I'm glad y'all got the chat covered. I'm like, my chat's hiding. I don't want to put my chat on the screen. So, sweet. Well, without further ado, I will show our thank you slide. This is the team that helped to make everything happen today. So I just wanted to acknowledge you all. And that's from SGC, that's Kiara, Sandra, and Sarah. Oh, Sarah, who are all here with us. From our California Volunteers team, Josh, Julie, and Christina. And from OPR, Nikki, James, Eric, Kate, Alyssa, Elliot, and myself. This has been another Webinar Wednesday on Pathways to State Service. It'll be posted to YouTube for folks who couldn't make all of it, and we hope to see you next Wednesday and future Wednesdays for more webinars on different topics, usually on more technical topics, but this was a great break from our normal, technical wonky Webinar Wednesday. So I'm glad that you all could make it. And everyone, if you have last words, please.
Just a big thank you to William for kind of being the catalyst and just taking this idea and running with it and letting us all have this experience. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, from our socially distanced spaces throughout Northern and Southern California, we thank you from OPR-SGC and California Volunteers. Have a great Wednesday.